Derek with Gold and Black Radio. The holiday season is here, and Academy Sports and Outdoors has the legendary gifts you need at undefeatable prices every day. Shop in store or online at academy.com to save on gifts on everybody's list, from football jerseys and basketball hoops to fire pits and deer stands. The most wonderful time of the year happens here. This Christmas, give the gift of fun from Academy Sports and Outdoors. Welcome into another edition and the final edition of Gold and Black Radio, Friday, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. For the 100th time in its long and storied history, the Old Oaken Bucket rivalry is renewed as Purdue welcomes rival Indiana to Ross-Ade Stadium for a Friday kick under the lights. A Friday night game for the Bucket is a new development. What's not new is Purdue's dominance in November basketball tournaments. We'll talk football with Tom Dienhart and Dub Jellison and get into the history of the Purdue-IU football rivalry with Alan Karpick. But we're also going to fit in some hoops conversation as well. Talk about those top-ranked Boilers with Brian Newberg coming off another impressive win down there in the Bahamas and continuing non-conference play with their own Friday game at noon at Mackey Arena. And we'll have our final roundtable discussion of the season as well as we conclude on today's edition of Gold and Black Radio. But first, we want to give a shout out to our terrific Gold and Black Radio sponsors, such as Purdue Federal Credit Union, a proud partner of Purdue Athletics, and the official credit card for Purdue fans, Boiler Up, East End Grill, and Ripple and Company, two distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street, the perfect place for your next event. The Whitaker Inn, this Midwestern oasis, is perfect for a relaxing staycation or a weekend getaway. Escape from the ordinary at the Whitaker Inn. Sand Valley Resort, as the seasons change, escape to Sand Valley. Over 12,000 acres of prehistoric sand dunes transform into a breathtaking winter retreat. Glide through snow-covered trails, feel the thrill of fat tire biking, or simply find stillness by a crackling fire. With cozy accommodations and farm-to-table dining, Sand Valley is where adventure and connection come together. Book your winter escape today at sandvalley.com. And the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research. The Purdue Institute for Cancer Research has a history of innovation and one goal for the future: defeat cancer. Purdue brings together world-class Boilermaker scientists from across the university, conducting cutting-edge research that uncovers new ways to prevent, diagnose, and treat cancer. With your support, cancer research saves lives. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. Let's welcome back on our friends and the dynamic football duo for goldenblack.com, Tom Dienhart and Dub Jellison. And guys, let's start here, Tom. And I guess, Dub, you can weigh on this as well, even though you're in the younger generation. So you're used to having games just whenever, like Tuesday night football, Wednesday night football. You know, Tom and I, a little bit different when it comes to that. I'm not a fan of Friday night college football. And I get that we're at the end of the high school football season, so maybe it doesn't matter as much. But I really kind of dislike it when it comes to the Old Oaken Bucket. I think the Old Oaken Bucket game, I'm not trying to be old man, get off my lawn, should be a noon kick, as the good Lord intended, on a Saturday. That's what I want with my bucket game. Am I wrong?
I'm going to be the old man shaking his fist at the clouds then, okay? I'm with you, Derek Schultz. High noon. I'll let you go as late as 1 p.m., okay?
Fair.
But, yeah, I like these games. I like every game played under sunshine, to be honest with you. So just not a big fan of night games for a lot of reasons. And, yeah, here we got a Black Friday Old Oaken Bucket battles. So, yeah, not ideal. It's going to be really cold, too, right? But it is what it is, right? It doesn't do any good to have us complain about it. But, yeah, the sunshine's great, Derek. Maybe it's good as a night. It'll cloak what could be an ugly game for the Boilermakers. Big challenge, obviously, Derek Schultz. 4-touchdown underdog, under the lights. IU's got a lot to play for, right? Purdue stakes, not so great. But again, a chance maybe to live up to that old Boilermakers moniker, right?
Yeah, and I get that. Look, it's a rivalry. But at the same time, you see friends that go to this game together, and two of them wearing IU stuff, two of them wearing Purdue stuff. You even see families that are kind of split sometimes when it comes to some are in gold and black, some are in red and white. And I think it'll be a neat atmosphere under the lights. And Purdue fans have remained loyal and really showed out, given the circumstances at Ross-Ade Stadium. But, Dub, speaking of the players, I know you talked to some of the seniors this week, and this goes for everybody that's in the program right now. Needless to say, they don't want to go out like last year's class did with that defeat in Bloomington and instead hopefully fight to the bitter end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the seniors that came here for 1 year, I don't know that they got everything out of this that they would have liked just from a team success perspective, obviously. Sitting at 2-9 right now. A lot of people projecting them to go 2-10 after Friday night. So, I think it's it's probably a little disappointing for those guys. You know, we talked to Michael Jackson and Manny Powell, and at least Manny Powell. You know, I talked to him last week during the bye week, and kind of the main message of our talk was he wants to be able to lay the foundation for the guys that come behind him. So especially in that linebacker room, like Charles Correa and Winston Berglund and Sanders Ellis and Alex Sanford and guys like that. You know, the seniors that came from UNLV, I think they served a special role on this team as Barry Odom looks to kind of cement his culture and kind of establish things at West Lafayette. And you know, I think we're going to find out if Manny Powell and Tony Grimes and the rest of those guys actually did that. I guess in 2026 and beyond. But you know, it's weird nowadays with the transfer portal the way it is. I don't know how many seniors are going to walk on Friday night that have stayed with Purdue their whole career. I think Devin Mockabee might be the only one.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, actually. Tom, this Boilermaker team has faced a lot of good quarterbacks this year. We just saw Julian Sayin in Ohio State. Notre Dame CJ Carr, that was only like his third or fourth start, but he's turned into a really good player. Luke Altmaier at Illinois, Jaden Maeva at USC. But is Fernando Mendoza the best of the bunch in your eyes?
Oh, I think so, without a doubt. And kid at Washington was good too, Williams. So you're right. It's been a litany roll call of outstanding college football quarterbacks. But you're right, Derek, without a doubt. I think Mendoza probably sits at the top of that hierarchy of quarterbacks Bruce had to face this year. Maybe the Heisman frontrunner. You know, I've got a Heisman vote, and man, I mean, he's got to be in there in the top three, right? He may be number one. And the kid at Ohio State too, saying, my goodness, what about an 80% completion percentage? So, yeah, they just have it all rolling right now, right? I started hearing whispers last off season when they got him from Cal, that he was a pro. And I honestly didn't know much about him. And it kind of makes you sit up in your seat a little straighter when you hear those types of words from people you trust. And he's turned out to be every bit as good as people said he was going to be. Maybe I was just too naive or uninformed to realize his talent. But, man, he's got special players around him too, right? I think his best wideout Surratt may be ready to play this weekend as well. So, yeah, I mean, again, that offense is number one in the Big Ten in scoring, over 40 points per game. And defensively, there's a lot to talk about, too. I think defensively, they're number two in scoring defense behind only Ohio State. So I tell you what, man, not to jump ahead a week, and I know this is a Purdue-centric podcast, but, man, that Big Ten championship game is going to be out of sight. 1 versus 2 team in the country, possibly. So, again, we'll see what Purdue can do here, right, guys? How do you measure success? Do you not getting your head dunked underwater and held there for 4 quarters, or can you put up a fight? Part of me kind of thinks Purdue is going to have some fight to him, some moxie to him on Friday night. We'll see how fired up they are to try to slow down this IU runaway train right now.
Yeah, and Doug, to Tom's point, I mean, this defense is really good too. And from a quarterback standpoint on Purdue's side of things, in order for this game not to be a Hoosier runaway, Purdue's going to have to get something from the quarterback play, which has been severely lacking in the last couple of weeks. Can Brown and Singleton, assuming they both see the field, get things back on track enough for the Boilers to at least have a respectable showing against this Hoosiers defense?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tall test. You know, like Tom mentioned, I think they're number 2 in scoring, just behind Ohio State. So it's going to be one of the toughest tests that they've seen all year. And you know, when we talked to Josh Henson on Monday, he said that Ryan Brown's still the starter, but that Malachi Singleton has earned reps and has earned playing time. And that's kind of, you know, what we figured, right? Just with the snap counts against Washington a couple weeks ago. You know, Malachi Singleton, I think, has had some level of success, a lot more than Ryan Brown has in the last, month and a half. I don't think that Ryan Brown has been playing as well as he did at the beginning of the season. So, and that's the thing that's going to make this Purdue offense go. If they're going to have success, they need to find consistency with Ryan Brown and Malachi Singleton. So we're going to see if they can do that. I know that Purdue is still talking both of those guys up, and I think we'll see both of them. To what extent, I'm not quite sure yet. But it'll be interesting to see if Purdue can crack a defense that hasn't been cracked all season.
Tom, is this the last time we'll see Ryan Brown and Malachi Singleton on the field as in gold and black?
What a provocative question, Derek Schultz.
That's what I'm here for.
You know what? Nobody's for sure. If these guys will be back next year, that's the great question. Who all is going to be retained? You got to think they're already working on that, right? They probably have already approached guys about their interest in coming back. They're going to probably have to act pretty quickly here. The portal doesn't open until January, but guys are already be jumping in here soon at the conclusion of the season. Deals will be cut before guys even jump in the portal. So I'm sure a lot of these decisions have been made, but that's a great question, Derek. Will Ryan Brown be the QB1 next year? Will Malachi Singleton be QB1 when they come back in similar roles next year? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I think they need a different quarterback. I know these guys haven't been helped by a great offensive line. I know they have not been helped by good wide receivers. They've struggled. They're at a tight end too. So their supporting cast hasn't been great. I just think, I guess if it's me, I'd like to turn the page and try to find a guy who's really been an established starter somewhere, be it that at the FCS level, the group of 5 level, whatever. A guy who's seen a lot of live action. I think that's what they should have done coming into this year, honestly. Instead, they rolled the dice with nobody with significant starting experience, which would scare the bejesus out of me. But anyway, we'll see what happens. And that's a question go on Knucklehead Central. And there's a lot of debate there and conjecture as to what they should do. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And I think we're probably going to find out, like I said, shortly hereafter when the calendar turns to December, on what Purdue's plans are under center, I would think.
Glass half full, will it be more beneficial for Purdue to have the continuity of knowing that, once Saturday hits at 12 a.m., Barry Odom's still going to be the head coach of this team. The transfer portal window is not going to be open immediately or anything like that. Everything last year just felt like kind of a mad scramble from the end of the bloodshed at the old Oaken bucket game to letting Ryan Walters go, to hiring Odom, to the portal, and to all of that. And it feels like maybe at least Purdue could be, look, they're probably going to go 2-10, right? I'm reaching for positives here. I know that, but maybe at least they'll have some solid footing and be a little bit more methodical with some of the offseason decision making, or have the ability to do so.
Yeah, and the transfer portal is just a mad dash as it is. I can't imagine the things that were going through Barry Odom's head last year when he took this Purdue job and it was tasked with trying to establish his foothold in recruiting. Get involved in the portal, hire his staff. Just kind of get comfortable in West Lafayette, move his whole family here. It's just a lot for a guy to go through. So I think this year they're still going to have some things to do in December, as Tom alluded to. You would assume guys would start at least announcing their intentions to enter the portal and things of that nature. I'll be interested to see kind of what their plans are moving forward. I'm sure we'll ask Barry that on Friday night after the game, or on National Signing Day on Wednesday. But I think this will give Purdue an opportunity to take a breath, I'd be able to identify all the needs that they have, or that they feel that they need to fill, and maybe be more targeted with their transfer portal endeavors, and not have to worry about just filling a roster, because bringing in 83 new guys is absolutely unheard of. So I don't think it'll be as crazy this time around. We'll see though. This break and just having the coaching staff coming back for another year, I think it'll do wonders for Purdue.
Boilers and Hoosiers, 7:30 kick under the lights Friday night at Ross-Ade Stadium, and Tom and Dub have you covered. They will be there to cover the game, and you're going to want to follow Tom and Dub for all the portal news and recruiting coverage throughout the next several months at goldenblack.com, because even though the season's coming to an end, college football season never really ends anymore. Certainly there's not much of an off season. At Tom Deanhart1, at Dub Jellison on X for immediate insights, and then, of course, right here at goldenblack.com. Guys, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you making the time for this throughout the season. We've done tapings of the Tuesday shows, and I'm texting you like 2 or 3 hours beforehand. Hey, when can you do this? and making the time. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much. I do have one bold prediction that I want to leave you with, and I understand that we're going to bring you back on for Roundtable for the 2026 season. You ready for it?
Yes, fire away.
We're going to get to actually recap a Big Ten win on this show. I feel it. After 2 years, we are going to finally have the chance to recap a win. I just know it. We'll bring you back for Roundtable here coming up a little bit later on the show. Thanks again.
Thank you, Derek.
Thanks, Derek.
That's Tom Dienhart and Dub Jellison. God, I hope so. Maybe I'll just settle for a Power 4 win. I didn't even look at the non-conference schedule for next year. I think it's Notre Dame again and a couple of others, but we'll check that out. I feel pretty confident they're going to finally break that Big Ten drought coming up here soon. This portion of Golden Black Radio brought to you by our friends at East End Grill and Ripple and Company, 2 distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street, the perfect place for your next event. We have our opponent view coming up in just a minute as Tom went over to the opposition to get a game preview of the number 2 ranked Hoosiers. But first, it's your final game day forecast from Chad Evans. He's going to get you set for what to expect from Ross-Ade Stadium on Friday night, and we'll go right into the IU preview to follow. Here's Chad.
Hi everyone, I'm meteorologist Chad Evans with a look at your forecast for the Old Oaken Bucket game, Purdue taking on IU on what's going to be a cold Friday. Temperatures in the low to mid 20s, winds light out of the east to east-northeast with increasing high and mid-level clouds. No snowfall expected, but it is going to be a cold one, so bundle up. Boiler up.
All right. Hey, really glad to be joined by the great Dylan Sin, one of the good guys in the business. Dylan covers a multitude of things for the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, among them Indiana, and that's why he's joining us today. Thank you, Dylan. Let's jump right into the deep end and tell our viewers and listeners what they can expect from that very potent Indiana offense on Friday when this game kicks off over in Ross-Ade Stadium.
Yeah, what you can expect is a lot of balance. This team can beat you in a lot of ways on offense. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza is the headliner, right? He's fantastic. He's leading the race for the Heisman Trophy. Already has set the IU single-season record for passing touchdowns with 30. He leads the Big Ten in yards per attempt. He can throw it deep. He can go over the middle. He can move in the pocket, which is something that Curtis Rourke really struggled with last year, partially because he was playing on a torn ACL. So Fernando Mendoza is not that. He can tuck the ball and run. He's very tough. And obviously the context of this game, he is right in the thick of that Heisman Trophy race. And so it wouldn't surprise me if IU tried to get him a few style points in this game, right? So we might see him throw the ball all over the field, see what happens. And part of that too is that they're getting wide receiver Elijah Surratt back from injury, very likely. He's missed most of the last 4 games with a hamstring injury. He is expected to play in this one. It wouldn't surprise me if they try to get him in rhythm, get him going early, maybe try to take a shot to him down the field. He's more of a possession guy, more of a guy who you throw to 15 yards down the field. But if they take a deep shot to him early, I wouldn't be surprised to try to get him going. But IU has 3 now really good receivers with Surratt, Omar Cooper Jr., and Charlie Becker. They're excellent. And then the run game is no joke either. They have 2 running backs that have been really, really good in Roman Hemby and Kalon Black, both of whom fight through tackles, both of whom can get on the outside. And the offensive line has been excellent as well. That's the only real kind of weakness for this Indiana team, is that the offensive line has been a little bit shaky since Drew Evans, the guard, got hurt. He might play this week. Kind of seems like probably not. The line has been okay without him, but not as great as it was early in the season. So that might be something that Purdue could exploit. But other than that, it's just a really, really balanced offense that can beat you in a multitude of ways. And getting Surratt back makes it even more dangerous. So it is one of the best offenses in the country.
Yeah, Purdue's going to have its hands full. The number 1 scoring offense in the Big Ten, over 40 points a game, like you said, Dylan. Also one of the best in America. Defensively, again, I mean, that unit ranks among the best as well. Number 2 in the Big Ten on scoring defense. Kind of give us an idea of what to expect from that Hoosier D on Friday.
Yeah, the main thing to expect is a lot of creativity. Bryant Haynes, the defensive coordinator, always has something up his sleeve. We saw it especially against Oregon. He had a lot of different things, different blitzes and stunts and coverages that he can run. He really is creative at getting the matchups that he wants. And he has the players to do that. It really starts at linebacker for IU. They have three really, really good ones in Aiden Fisher, Isaiah Jones, and Elijah Hardy. Jones has stepped up. He's the leader in the Big Ten in terms of tackles for loss. He is one of the better run defenders in the conference, just all over the field, sideline to sideline. But the defensive line is very good for IU too. I think a lot of people thought that could be a little bit of a weakness for Indiana this year, was that defensive front after losing CJ West and James Carpenter. But that hasn't been the case. Hosea Wheeler has been great for them. Mario Landino has been really good at defensive tackle. And then Stephen Daly has really stepped up for them at defensive end. The Kent State transfer, former teammate of CJ Nunnally for Purdue. Once Kellen Wyatt went out for IU, Stephen Daly has stepped up as their guy coming off the edge. So really good up front as well. And then in the secondary, Lewis Moore is one of the nation's leaders in interceptions and safety. D'Angelo Pons is one of the best cover corners in the country, so they're set back there as well. It is a guy kind of like the offense. There's not a real thing you can point to and say that's where you attack them. That is where they're weak, because they don't really have one of those weaknesses. They are just complete from top to bottom, and they execute at extremely high level.
Yeah, it's so impressive, Dylan. When they went out to Oregon and sat on the Ducks, so impressive. Then the way they handled adversity at Penn State, unbelievable. 4-touchdown favorite Friday night for the Hoosiers. How do you see this game unfolding? Does Purdue have any chance, Dylan?
Yeah, I don't think they have zero chance. I think this Purdue team has a lot of pride. I think from what we've seen all season is that this Purdue team is going to give you a little bit of something, right? And I think coming off of the bye week, they will have something schemed up for IU. I wouldn't be surprised to see Purdue pull out some razzle dazzle in the early going of this game. Maybe get an early touchdown on something that is unexpected, some kind of trick play or something like that. Now, IU has come out and been very good against that kind of thing, right? They sniffed it out when Maryland tried it early on, but we'll see. I think Purdue is well coached, and I think they will have something ready for IU. Now, is that going to be enough to win over 4 quarters? Probably not. The other part of this is IU is not playing for style points like it was last year. They are winning into the Big Ten championship game. It doesn't really matter what the margin of this game is. If you win, you are going to Indianapolis, and probably if you go to Indianapolis, probably getting a bye in the college football playoff, regardless of what happens there. So this game, unlike last year when they needed to really make a final statement to the committee, this year they can just kind of say, all right, we win by 1, we win by 50, it's all the same. And so I think you'll probably see them get up by maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns late in the third quarter, take their foot off the gas a little bit, and maybe win 38-14 or something like that. It wouldn't surprise me if that is how we end up going in this game. And IU probably goes and wins the bucket again and finishes an undefeated season. But I think Purdue has a little something for them this year.
Crazy. It was a long, cold night in Bloomington last year, Dylan, 66-0. So we'll see. One team's going for 12 wins in a row. The other's probably looking at a 10th loss in a row. The chasm between these two programs has never been so great. So we'll see if the Boilers do have some fight, Dylan. I look forward to seeing you. Always do, and appreciate you giving us some of your time and dropping some IU knowledge on us.
Thanks so much to Chad Evans for his forecasts all season long, and appreciate Tom getting the 411 on all of the opponents that Purdue was going to play beforehand, and of course doing so with the rival Hoosiers ahead of the Old Oaken Bucket game for us too. This portion of Golden Black Radio brought to you by Purdue Federal Credit Union, a proud partner of Purdue Athletics and the official credit card for Purdue fans. Boiler up. Let's bring on Alan Karpick with a historical perspective. And as I mentioned, 100th game, and you go back even more than 100 years. Obviously, that's just the trophy era of the Old Oaken Bucket game. The Indiana-Purdue rivalry goes back even farther. In fact, Alan, I think people in the state of Indiana have an understanding about this rivalry and its longstanding nature. But, this is the 7th longest rivalry in America. It's tied for the 5th oldest trophy game. Only the Little Brown Jug in the Big Ten is longer standing. And I think we both know that this game, because of the programs and largely, not that Purdue's been great either, but, historically, obviously, Indiana being somewhat of a perennial doormat, it's very rarely been a nationally relevant game, and therefore it lacks the national recognition, of course, at Michigan, Ohio State, and games like that. But even Wisconsin and Minnesota and some of these other games that are big, long-standing rivalries in the Big Ten. But from strictly an historical standpoint, I mean, I'd put it up there with just about anything, just for as long running as it's been.
Yeah, 100 years. And of course, it's 100th year because they didn't play in 2020 because of COVID. And it started with a 0-0 tie. Purdue has won 2/3 of the games. And of course, Indiana had the biggest win in the history of the series and the history of Purdue football last year in that 66 Love game. But yeah, there's something about it, at least in the state of Indiana. It's funny because of all of what the Hoosiers are playing for on Friday night. It kind of takes a little bit of a backseat because you're all looking ahead. If you're an Indiana fan, you're looking ahead to the Big Ten championship and making that next step. But it's been significant over the years too, because Indiana's only Rose Bowl appearance back in the 1967 game when they beat Purdue and upset a Purdue team. That Purdue's had several trip to the Rose Bowl in 2000, had to beat Indiana to do so. So it's had some big moments, and yet it has been Purdue and Indiana, and that's put it a little bit in the back seat.
Yeah, I want to talk about that 1967 game in just a little bit, but looking at this one, I don't remember what the spread was last year. I'm assuming it was right around here, but I saw 28.5. What's the largest spread? Do you know?
Well, I did some ciphering. It's funny because I always do this and I can't see the forest for the trees half the time. Last year was the biggest spread, 29 points. And
so it was higher last year. Okay.
A little bit, 27.5. There have been, and of course our database goes back to 1995, that there have been, I think Purdue's had been a 21-point favorite a couple of times, but the Boilermakers are as big an underdog in this game and as big an underdog at home by a long shot for a game played in Ross-Ade Stadium. The fact that Purdue's 27.5 or whatever that spread is, the Boilermakers are a big underdog. Fans know that, but it is historic when it comes to the history of Purdue and Indiana in Ross-Ade Stadium.
IU won 4 straight during the Darrell Hazel era, but outside of that, Friday night's game will be only their second chance at a winning streak in Old Oaken bucket matchups over the last 30 years. You got to go back to the Bill Mowry years, 93, 94. But I can't help but feel, and it's not because I've been stalking Knucklehead Central. Are you worried, Alan, that perhaps IU is about to embark on their best run of success maybe they've ever had in this rivalry, at least as far as consistency is concerned?
Well, you have to at least look at what you can see in front of you, Derek, and the fact that it's 2 years in a row. And yes, there's certainly with Curt Cignetti and what he's done. I don't expect the Hoosiers to fall off the end of the earth next year. They're going to be good. And there's a lot of cachet there in terms of getting kids to come to Bloomington. Purdue's going to have to dig a ditch and get back into this series. And yet, it's right. 2 years ago, Purdue, even though Purdue under Ryan Walters did not have a very good team, had to come from behind that win in 2023, Purdue's last Big Ten victory. Purdue fans getting tired of being reminded of that.
Yeah.
Power 4 victory also. And that, and if you remember that Purdue was down in that game between Tom Allen and Ryan Walters, and Purdue had to come back and win that game. But yes, Indiana has dominated here, has the ability to dominate. Purdue has still dominated that series over the years. Like I said, winning 64 of the bucket games, 64 of the 99. There have been three ties, I believe, in there, and Purdue's had its upper hand for the most part.
I'd mentioned that 1967 game and the fact that, this is a series that even though this is the 100th time, there hasn't been very many times where both programs have that the game has had stakes outside of bragging rights. But that was a game that absolutely had stakes. In fact, one of the biggest wins in Indiana history predating the Curt Cignetti era for sure.
The Cardiac Kids of Indiana and Harry Gonzo and John Eisenbarger and Jade Butcher. Purdue goes into that game ranked. I had originally texted you, said they were ranked second. No, they were ranked third. So Indiana being ranked second will be the highest ranked team in this series come Friday night in Ross-Ade Stadium. But Purdue goes into that game in November, a beautiful day in November back in 1967, a 2-touchdown favorite in that game. Indiana beats Purdue. Purdue fumbles on the goal line. Indiana comes off with a 19-14 win, goes to the Rose Bowl for the only time it's been to the Rose Bowl, and beats a very good Purdue team that was not eligible to go to the Rose Bowl that year because of the no repeat rule. Purdue had gone to the Rose Bowl the year before. even though it had, and it fell Purdue into a three-way tie for the Big Ten championship. Minnesota, last time the Gophers have won the Big Ten championship. Indiana, last time the Hoosiers have won it until this year. And the Hoosiers will have at least a share of the non-conference or the the regular season Big Ten championship. And then, of course, the fact that Purdue also tied for that, but a very, very disappointing loss way back in 1967.
Dumb question, but I knew of the no repeat rule, but had Purdue won that game, they would still get to call themselves Big Ten champions, right? They just wouldn't go to Pasadena.
Right, and they were the Big Ten champions in '67.
Gotcha.
They were the tri-champions.
Just in a three-way tie, yeah. Okay.
And when you're Purdue, even worse for Indiana, but when you're Purdue, you hang on to your Big Ten championships. Purdue's only won them in 1952, 1967, and, of course, 2000 under Drew Brees. Purdue has not been a regular Big Ten championship football team. So that was a big deal for Purdue, but it's still a disheartening loss. Some of the old-timers still haven't forgotten.
Yeah, for sure. And, going back in the history, just kind of scrolling through, and that's the one that pops out among all of them for sure. Allen will host the final Gold and Black postgame show following Friday night's matchup in West Lafayette. Tune in to him and Nate Barrett, plus Tom Dubb and the usual Gold and Black cast of characters on many of these same platforms. Thanks so much, Allen, and happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, and looking forward to the postgame show coming up here on Friday night.
And because we're a full-service show here, we're going to tell you that Purdue's 3 non-conference games you talked about in the last segment, they open with Indiana State, Wake Forest, Notre Dame, and Purdue has a Indiana-esque 2024 schedule next year. The Boilermakers don't play Michigan, don't play Ohio State, don't play Oregon. They go to Penn State. So they have a schedule. If they could cobble together a really good football team, in theory, the schedule lines up pretty good for Purdue, pretty well for Purdue in 2026.
Good to know. That makes me feel better about my guarantee that they're going to win a Big Ten.
There you go. They got a shot.
There you got a shot. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Allen. Appreciate it.
Man. Bye.
That's Allen Karpik. He is the publisher at goldenblack.com. And speaking of the site, it's Black Friday and Cyber Monday specials time here at GBI. 50% off subscriptions for those who are not members. The sale's only going to be valid on those 2 days, Friday, Monday. Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So take advantage of the lowest price of the year to become a goldandblack.com subscriber and get all of the best Purdue coverage on all of the internet. This portion of GBR brought to you by Sand Valley Resort with cozy accommodations and farm-to-table dining. Sand Valley is where adventure and connection come together. Book your winter getaway at sandvalley.com. And the Whitaker Inn for unparalleled comfort and cuisine. Visit the Whitaker Inn. Let's bring on goldenblack.com columnist, basketball knower Brian Newbert to join us now as we talk a little bit of hoopage here. I might fit in a football question just to kind of keep you on your toes. Full disclosure, we're getting ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday by taping this show, and I know Purdue has a noon start against Eastern Illinois on Friday. That's a sub-300 KenPom team as we enter this morning, so I'm going to assume that they take care of business there. So we're just going to kind of keep talking to generalities and instead of talking about like EIU and stuff like that. Let's talk about Omar Mayer. I know we mentioned him a little bit on Tuesday's show, but, in a really good place, Brian, as far as the trust factor is concerned with Matt Painter. But can you see that role expanding even more as the season is going to go along? And if you were projected out, what do you think Mayer's freshman season is ultimately going to look like?
Hey, first off, before I start talking about basketball, can we all agree that when Allen talks about those old timers, he's just making those names up?
Yeah, Harry Gonzo didn't really exist, right? Yeah, it's a Muppet. Yeah.
Led by a 3-touchdown performance from Pork McGillicuddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I swear he's just making – those are like cartoon names. I swear he's just making that stuff up. No, Omar Mayer is having a really good freshman year in a role here for Purdue. And you ask what his freshman year is going to end up looking like. If it looks – the rest of the way like it's looked so far, it's a pretty damn good freshman year. And part of the point of this season for him, too, is as a launching pad to next year when all of a sudden he takes over and, the best case scenario is you drop off very little from Braden Smith. And you know how hard that is to have a player like Braden Smith and then not drop off very much after him. It's really hard. And damn it, there goes my earbud. Speaking of dropping off, no, he's doing a great job. Matt Painter's taking Braden Smith out of games in the first half, which would have been unthinkable, in a lot of situations last year. And, Purdue's not really fallen off. And Omer Meyer's going out there being aggressive. They're doing the same stuff with Omer Meyer as I think they would be doing with Braden Smith. Probably not entirely, but they're putting him out here. They're putting him out there. They're letting him go. He's making plays. He's being aggressive offensively. And, the thing about Braden Smith is he really took off as a player when he started looking to score, and everything else kind of played off of that. Omer Meyer's going out there looking to score and commanding the same sort of attention. And if he can just keep doing that all season long, especially now that there's tape out there on him and a warning out there to future opponents that they have to guard him like they guard Braden Smith, he's going to have a lot of opportunities to make things happen this year. And that's what he's been doing so far, and that's what he's going to probably keep doing. And for him to be a player this good who could be doing this over 30 minutes a game at a lot of places versus what might be 5 minutes on some nights at Purdue just speaks volumes to what he's kind of in this for. He's willing to play a secondary role this year. He's willing to, in the big picture of his career, play behind and play with Braden Smith, whereas elsewhere he would be someone's Braden Smith. It just kind of speaks to the substance of the decision he made to come to Purdue, and it's going to be a really mutually beneficial one in the long run here, starting now.
Far more unheralded than Omer was a guy named CJ Cox last year. And I think I might have asked you this last year, but I want to say it again because I'm still mystified, especially after his Bahamas performance. It was a guy that was he was rated, I think, like the 9th best player in Massachusetts. How was no one else in on CJ Cox? Sometimes you see guys that are like diamond in the rough players, and then by the time they're like a junior or senior, they're a good frontline player. Like CJ Cox is a good frontline player now, and he's like not even a season and a quarter into his collegiate career. And I went back and looked at his offer list again, Brian. It was like my buddy who was, honor roll in Connecticut. It was like American and like BU and schools like that. Like there was nobody on that offer list except for Purdue.
Yeah, he had a lot of Ivy League people on him because he's a very good student. But the reality is recruiting is stupid. It's based on a lot of dumb stuff, and it's conducted by a lot of unremarkable people who make their decisions based on very silly factors. And, sometimes when a guy, only jumps so high or gets overshadowed by somebody he's playing with, or people don't know what position a guy can play, they just get scratched off the list. It's possible people just didn't even see CJ Cox. I'm not sure who was on his Middlesex Magic team that would have been drawing eyeballs to that team. But the reason Matt Painter saw him was because he was recruiting Travis Perry. And Painter noticed him, got a tip from somebody who I'd be interested to know who that person is. I've heard rumors about who it might have been, but Painter got a tip, ended up seeing CJ Cox because he played against the guy Painter at the time wanted and ended up ultimately not wanting because he liked CJ Cox better, and CJ Cox is going to be a better college player than Travis Perry. All due respect to Travis Perry, who's now at Ole Miss. But no, it's Painter sees things in players that he can use. Other people see things in players that don't fit their blueprint for players. And Painter, gets out there, sees players, talks to a lot of people. I'm not saying he was all over the place on CJ Cox. It just so happened this worked out. But I think, I can give you 100 examples over the years of guys who might not have checked every box for what most recruiters, many recruiters at least, are looking for in players. Many rankings people are looking for in players, and Painter sees value where other people don't. And CJ Cox is the classic example. Painter's told the story before about how when they wrapped up that tournament, it was his last day AU tournament. Everyone was hugging CJ Cox because they like the kid so much. And that's the sort of stuff Painter picks up on and values, as opposed to, had CJ Cox been dunking on people or making 50-foot 3-pointers and making highlights and being a mixtape guy, maybe some other people would have been on him. Our native Northeast, too, is a place where, sometimes guys can
hide
because there's so many players in those cities. And there's not a lot of great basketball programs out there. So if you're growing up in Boston College is incompetent. But if like Providence isn't on you, Syracuse isn't on you, Maryland, Georgetown, places like that, you can slip through the cracks very easily. It happens in football all the time. If Notre Dame and Penn State aren't on a kid from Jersey, he can get to Virginia Tech very easily. And that's that's kind of how a lot of things went in the 90s when I was coming up. But I think that CJ Cox just kind of slipped through the cracks. And had there been some stud on his Middlesex Magic team that would have drawn out the rankings people, would have drawn out more recruiters to see this kid, maybe he would have gotten more run. That said, had Purdue found him, Purdue would have really spoke to him still. And whoever would have been on him before might have gotten jumped right over by Purdue because he's a Purdue guy. Academics were huge for him. And he certainly made the most of it. And, Purdue's damn glad to have him. He's really made a jump from one year to the next. So is Jakari Harris. There are going to be games this year, I think, where this is flipped, where Jakari Harris is the guy who stands out the way CJ Cox did. I almost said Chicago Cox. That would have been funny. CJ Cox did in the Bahamas. This is a roster where the quality 1 through 10 is really significant. And, this might have been Jack Benner's week. This might have been CJ Cox's week. But there are going to be, certainly periods of this season dominated by Braden Smith, dominated by Trey Kaufman-Moran, dominated by, perhaps in some cases, Daniel Jacobson. There's just a lot of guys on this team. And, CJ Cox is certainly one of them, and he absolutely stood out. He should have been on that all-tournament team. I get it that they have to spread it around. They can't put too many guys from one team on there, but, Purdue had 2 guys on that team. Fletcher Lair was MVP. Oscar Clough was a no-brainer. CJ Cox would have been third in line for that. And Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Moran, who are both preseason All-Americans, would have been 4 and 5 at best. That tells you what, kind of the deck Purdue's playing from this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why they're number one. Wanted to leave you with a football question. You have a favorite? I'm going to ask this to the group in roundtable too. Do you have a favorite Old Oaken bucket game memory?
Not really. It's kind of funny that people are like, oh, the rivalry's never been so one-sided. Well, go back and look at 97, 98, 99, 2000. This thing is cyclical, and there have been very few pockets of time over the course of history where both of these teams have been good at once. And I know Alan made up some names before, was talking about how in the late 60s, Pork McGillicuddy and his IU team went to the Rose Bowl because Purdue couldn't. That would have been one of those examples. But in my lifetime, in my frame of reference here, very rarely have these two programs been good at once. There's probably reasons for that, related to recruiting bases and things like that. That might be off the table now. This is an entirely different era of college sports, but nevertheless, they've very rarely been up at the same time, and it can be cyclical. So if you're looking at Indiana's success right now as the death knell of Purdue football, I get it, but I wouldn't exactly take that to the bank. I'm not saying that to defend Purdue. I'm just saying that, these things flip pretty quick. And, just because Purdue's had some really, really difficult times and Indiana has found its Joe Tiller, that's an imperfect comparison, but I think it's a valid one. I don't think this is, Indiana taking over the rivalry for perpetuity here.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't know if he still is, but I think Harry Gonzo was like on their trustees and all of that. Like he helped in their coaching searches, even though obviously the name Harry Gonzo is pretty funny. I think he helped in like the Archie Miller and maybe even the Tom Crean coach. I don't know why I think that. I got to go back and look, but it does sound very Muppety. You can follow Brian, who is definitely not a Muppet. He's a human and a basketball nowhere. At Brian Newbert on X, get his thoughts, writings, analysis. And you can do so as well by becoming a goldenblack.com subscriber. And like I said, Purdue and EIU for a noon start on Friday as they continue their non-league portion at the friendly confines of Mackey Arena. Thanks so much, Brian. Happy Thanksgiving to you and the family.
You as well, Derek. Thanks, man.
That's Brian Newbert. And we'll get to Roundtable here in just a second. But before we conclude this edition of Gold and Black Radio, here's a word from our friends at BetMGM. As you all know by now, Gold and Black Radio has also teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. When you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet. Offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 and over only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that can expire in 7 days. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Let's bring the entire band back together for Roundtable to conclude Gold and Black Friday edition of the show. Dub Jellison to my right, Tom Dienhart in the Brady Bunch bottom corner. I don't remember where Jan and everybody else Brady was. Dub has no idea what we're talking about. Alan Karpick as well for Roundtable. I asked Brian this, and he didn't have an answer for me, but I wanted to go around the room because I think probably all of you guys will give a different answer. I don't know, Alan, maybe you've got something queued up from like 1928 or something. Dub, what's your favorite Old Oaken bucket game memory?
Is it cheating if I give 2?
It's okay. Hey, Dub, have you? Can you jump out and then jump back in because your mic is doing that thing where it slows down again? But then we'll get your 2 memories here in just a second. Tom, let's go over to you for bucket game memories. Do you have one that stands out?
What was Ann B. Davis's favorite bucket game?
I always wanted to be Jan Brady. Eve Plum is my all-time favorite. That's a little bit creepy, but that's all right. I'll stop it.
I tell you what. Yeah, for me, I wrote about it in 3-2-1 today. I even dropped Alan Karpick's name in there. 1986, sitting up in that old rickety press box as a student assistant to Jim Brujic, Mark Adams, Bob Goldring, and a young Alan Karpick watching Rod Woodson play the act of Superman that day. It was a lot of fun. They warmed up in black jerseys, went back in before kickoff, came back out wearing gold jerseys. And, of course, the Woodson game has become one of lore now, where he did it all in his final appearance for the Boilermakers, and Purdue won, too. A couple other quickies for me. I'll give you one other quickie, too. Now, I wasn't at this one, 1989 in Bloomington.
Yeah.
I always talked to Jim Schwantz about this game, and they printed up T-shirts afterward. No bucket, no bowl, no trophy. And then they had an expletive for their last one. One of the biggest upsets in bucket history. They beat IU down there. An IU team headed to the Freedom Bowl. An IU team with Anthony Thompson poised to win the Heisman Trophy. Purdue, a bad Purdue team, beats a good Indiana team and just sort of plays the ultimate role of a spoiler that afternoon. So those are 2 that still resonate with me.
Yeah, there are folks down in Bloomington that think that cost Thompson the Heisman, Alan.
Yeah.
They still talk about it.
Quick. Who won the Heisman that year, remember? 1989?
Where?
Andre Ware.
Andre Ware. Good job.
That was in my wheelhouse because it's kind of like, in school, you learn the presidents. You learn the Heisman winners, right, when you're a kid of the 80s, and you can kind of rattle them all off. What about you, Alan? Favorite bucket game memory?
It's funny because one of the ones that I was only because it was played on Black Friday, the only time Purdue and Indiana played on Black Friday, 1995. And it was on TV on ESPN, an afternoon game, and two teams under 500. Mike Allstott runs for 264 yards. And Harry Gonzo is a real person, by the way. You know he is. And God, Brian, he's just busted me terribly. I can't even defend myself. And yet, so that was a classic game. And, of course, Purdue kills Indiana that day. I think it was at 51-19. And Allstott, Jim Coletto takes Mike Allstott out of the game with 264 yards rushing. I think Otis Armstrong had the record. He only needed like 11 more yards. Takes him out the start of the fourth quarter, and Purdue blows him out. But another great game when both teams were really good. And this is 1979, a game at Bloomington. It was one of my first dates with my wife of 30. I don't know how many. I better know that answer. It has been 36 years or whatever it's been. Anyway, we go on to that down to that game, and Indiana team coached by Lee Corso ends up going to the Holiday Bowl. Purdue beats Indiana down there in a classic game. Purdue beat him relatively soundly, but both teams were upper-level Big Ten teams that year, 1979, one of my games. But you're right, Tom, the 86 game was a classic. It's hard to beat the 2000 game if you're a Purdue fan. Also, of course, that trip to the Rose Bowl.
What about you, Dub? You said you had two, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and I'm going to show my youth because I think all the ones that you guys have talked about have been before I was born.
Yeah.
2017 was my first experience of going to a bucket game. So that was obviously really cool. Markel
Ended a
Jones
losing streak.
And obviously, Markel Jones had one of his patented explosive games against Indiana. I think he had 217. And Elijah Sindelar kind of led them to victory. I also thought 2022 was really cool to experience. Purdue getting that win in the final week of the season to clinch the Big Ten West title and the Big Ten championship game, spot. And then the game itself excluded. Last year being on the field before the game, just the aesthetic was something like I've never seen it in my life. On a football field, it was really cool to see the wind or the snow kind of swirling around down there. It was really cool to see. So, but 2017 and 2022 are kind of stand out to me.
Luckily, some people got to go back up in the press box.
Yeah,
Some of us did not have the ability to do that. I'm going to mention this one just because it always stuck with me, and it's become like an iconic photo for Purdue football. But when I was a senior in high school, that was the 2000 team, and 25 years ago, that picture of Drew Brees embracing Joe Tiller with the rose in his mouth to clinch the Rose Bowl berth. I always thought, even though that was somewhat of an unremarkable game, right? It was a blowout. That memory always, I think, resonates with Purdue fans as well. I think they knew they were going to the Rose Bowl, but then you really, really knew once the ink was dried on that victory. Something else I wanted to present across the room. Last question here on Roundtable, and Tom, you had kind of mentioned it as well, because Tom actually has a Heisman vote. Could it be two players in the state of Indiana, 1 and 2 right now, guys? With not only and two Purdue, right? Because they saw Jeremiah Love earlier this year, and then obviously Fernando Mendoza, who they're going to see on Friday night.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. Good point, Derek. Jeremiah Love, my goodness, yet another great player Purdue had to square off against this year. He's special, and there's no doubt with the way they're finishing the season here, he's gaining a lot of momentum. I watched that ESPN highlight show. I tape it and then watch it Sunday morning, and man, he gets a lot of publicity, and more and more people are getting in his corner, right? Kind of cool to see a running back winning as well. So yeah, I think you're right. Two Purdue players, two Indiana players who play in the state of Indiana have a great chance at least to get to New York for the ceremony, and one of those two may win it. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I think Love, some of if you just talk about straight, I think Mendoza's going to win, but if you talk about just straight highlight reels, I'm not sure anybody's got a highlight film like what Jeremiah Love has ended up doing this season. Guys, appreciate it. We're going to look forward to the post-game show on Friday night, the final one of the year, and look forward to another interesting offseason, to say the least. Say what you want about Purdue football. It's interesting. We can say that, but appreciate your contributions to the show all season long. I'm kind of sad that this is the 12th and final one of the year. But looking forward to the post-game show and looking forward to the renewal of the great rivalry coming up with the Bucket game on Friday night. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Take
Derek.
care.
Thanks, Derek.
That's Alan Karpick, Tom Dienhart, and Dub Jellison, and that is our show for this Golden Black Friday edition. Thanks so much to our tremendous sponsors who make GBR possible, including our presenting sponsor, Academy Sports and Outdoors, as well as Purdue Federal Credit Union, the official credit card for Purdue fans, East End Grill and Ripple and Company, two distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street in Lafayette, the Whitaker Inn for unparalleled comfort and cuisine. Visit the Whitaker Inn. By Sand Valley Resort with cozy accommodations and farm-to-table dining. Sand Valley is where adventure and connection come together. Book your winter escape today at sandvalley.com. And the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research, which has a history of innovation and one goal for the future, defeat cancer. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And, of course, you can leave a positive review on your favorite podcast platform. We'd really, really appreciate that. And don't forget to enable alerts as well. We upload new content just about every day. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to goldenblack.com? As I mentioned, join the biggest Purdue community on the internet. It's Black Friday and Cyber Monday. The deals don't get better than this. 50% off your Golden Black Illustrated subscription for those who are not members at goldenblack.com. The deal is only valid on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. You're listening on Friday. If you're not a subscriber, bang. Show's about to end. Go right over goldenblack.com, subscribe, get that deal. Or maybe you want to wait past the weekend. Wait until Monday. Bang. Go ahead and do it. Goldenblack.com. Become a subscriber. You get Tom, you get Dub, you get Brian, you get Carm, you get Alan, you get Jordan, you get, oh my God, we've got a whole cast of characters now on this show. I mean, you get me. I mean, technically, I guess if you, I'm way down the list on there. And you get Knucklehead Central and all the best Purdue fans on the internet at goldenblack.com. Sale will only be valid on Cyber Monday and Black Friday, so take advantage of our lowest price of the year to become a goldenblack.com subscriber. As I mentioned, Purdue-IU postgame show on these same channels following the game, so be sure to check back in then. If you're listening beforehand, I believe we're going to release this on Thursday. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Hope you enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the Bucket game, and we will see you next time right here on Golden Black Radio.